Turn it off. Okay, what's up? Welcome to the Go Grab That Day podcast. Hope everybody's doing good, keeping safe, keeping happy. I put up a post during the week, just kind of thanking everyone for the support on the podcast with the interviews and stuff over the last few weeks. Please just keep subscribing and supporting us and all that. Anybody who's following the page, please subscribe to the channel. It helps a lot. I know I keep saying it, but it does help a lot to get the subscriptions up, and they are climbing all the time, so the more they climb, the better. I do really appreciate the support and stuff. As always, I've quite a lot to get through today, as you can see by my horribly written notes. But please just keep supporting us, and hope you're all doing well. Anyway, so today we have the UFC Fight Night, Whittaker versus Gastelum, and we had the Jake Paul and Ben Askren fight to break down, or to rant about, which you're going to get. I'm trying not to, but it's going to be quite hard not to rant about it. But I'll breathe and we'll try and get through it. So firstly, we're going to run through some of the smaller UFC fights, and then how will I do it? Not a lot of big fights to break down, but the main event was really good, and the co-main not so bad either. But anyway, running through my notes. First off, the co-main today was supposed to be Drakkar, Klose and Jeremy Stephens, and I'm sure that a lot of people know by now Drakkar Klose pulled out of the fight due to an injury he supposedly sustained during the weigh-in, or the face-off, when Jeremy Stephens pushed him. Apparently he'd hurt something in his neck. I did put up a post kind of saying, and I stand by it somewhat, but I put up a post, and I know a lot of people were shitting on Jeremy Stephens. Even fighters were saying, they shouldn't be touching each other during the face-offs and stuff like that. And I was kind of thinking people were going a little over the top in terms of they're heading into a fight. They're going to be fucking chicken kicking each other into the face and trying to choke each other to sleep. So it's not that big a deal. Like, people are, people are calling with Jeremy Stephens' head. There's no need for that. It's a fight. That's what they do. They get in each other's face. You see it all the time with UFC fighters pushing each other. I did say that I thought maybe before a certain statement came out from Drakkar Klose's team, I thought maybe it was a pre-existing injury that hurt his neck, and obviously the push didn't help, which I still stand by somewhat. But they put out a statement basically saying, he himself put out a statement. After I was pushed by Jeremy at the UFC face-offs, I immediately felt my hand go numb and neck tighten up. Sean Shelby and the UFC officials sent me to the PI to get worked on by the UFC PT staff for 2 hours. I spent the night eating, rehydrating, stretching, and even saw PT staff later that night. I woke up early this morning with a migraine, headache, nausea, and the only thing that made me feel better was laying in the dark. UFC got me medicine and I rested for a couple hours before getting up and vomiting. I was at that point when we called the UFC doctor, and he made the decision to send me to hospital. I'm sorry to everyone who was excited for this fight. I tried to do everything I could to stay in this fight, but these issues are out of my control. So, that was the statement he made himself. And then said Klose's team later shared that the doctor diagnosed him with a brain concussion and sprain of the cervical neck. So I don't know, could that have happened from the push? Listen, I have a lot of neck issues myself. It can happen, a push and a quick, you can hurt your neck. But I would imagine a lot of this was from his training and his years of getting choked and getting slammed on himself, training wrestling and training chokes and stuff in jiu-jitsu, and probably taking shots to the head in training. Either way, look, hopefully the guy's okay. It's not nice to hear that, especially when it's a neck issue. Trust me, it's not fucking nice to have that kind of stuff. But I think people also need to ease up on Jeremy Stephens. He shouldn't have pushed him. I agree with that. But how many fighters do we see doing that? They're going to go into a cage and beat the piss out of each other. People can't go too crazy on Jeremy Stephens either. I know this guy is calling for there should be repercussions if they put their hands on each other and stuff, but it's all about the build up of the fight, isn't it? But let's just hope he's okay and it's not a serious issue. It's it's not nice in here. It's a neck. It's weird. They said a concussion. I can't imagine that push would have done that. But then again, I don't know. Maybe it did. But yeah, listen. Hopefully he's okay, and hopefully he returns fit and healthy. It isn't nice to see that. But just ease up on Jeremy Stephens. I mean, it's not that fucking bad. I don't know. It's funny. I don't know why Jeremy Stephens actually pushed him, because I didn't see any shit talk in the build up to it. I didn't even see any shit talk when that happened. Like, they went face to face, but I didn't hear Drakkar Klose say anything. I didn't even hear Jeremy Stephens say anything, and all of a sudden he just pushed him. It was a pretty hard push too. So yeah, it's not funny, but it's not as bad as people are selling it out to either. And I do hope he's okay, genuinely. Drakkar Klose, an interesting fighter, and always has interesting fights. His fight with Beneil Dariush was a cracker. I'm not sure was that his last fight, but one of them anyway. As I said, I'm going to quickly skip down through this fight card. Not the most amazing fight card, but I mean, not the worst either. So on the prelims, we had Gerald Meerschaert getting a good win over Fabinski. Meerschaert, who was in his last fight, I think he was on a 2-fight skid, and he got knocked out cold in his last fight against Chimaev. Yeah, that was the last fight. So he needed a win, a good win too, via submission in round 1. And then we had the return of Jessica Pena against Lupita Godinez. Lupita Godinez, who has an interesting story actually about her family. They said it on the broadcast. Her family had escaped Mexican cartels to move to America, however many years ago. But quite an interesting story. But she lost, unfortunately. But entertaining fight. Godinez was doing very well. Just Jessica Pena just outworked her and outgrappled her basically to win that fight. But she was getting punished at parts of that fight, Jessica Pena. But that's the experience as well. Good win for her in a return. Then we had Alexander Romanov versus Juan Espino. This one I found a little strange, because like, there was a low blow in the fight, and it was strange. It was because there was a low blow from Juan Espino, and Romanov couldn't continue. It was in the 3rd round, and what they did was they went off the scorecard up to that point and gave the win to Romanov, which I don't know. Even though he was hurt, no doubt about it, he was definitely hurt, and he said he couldn't straighten out his leg. But it was just a little strange that they did it that way, because I'm sure fighters can now count on that. Yeah, I don't know. I suppose they took the scorecard, so he was winning anyway. But I mean, yeah, I don't know whether I agree or disagree with that. Like, they just basically took the scores from the fight up to that point, to where you could no longer fight on. I know some fighters on Twitter were giving out about that, saying it was. They weren't necessarily giving out about Romanov. I saw Henry Cejudo was giving out to what's his name? Always happens to me when I'm on this fucking podcast. Peter Yan versus this name here. Yeah, that guy. Basically when he got hurt with the knee that time, and Henry Cejudo was basically blaming him, saying this is why fighters are doing this now, they're copying you. And yeah, he said it on Twitter, so a little bit of shit talk over and back about this fight, but I think it was mostly aimed at this guy whose name I can't think of. Christ. Always happens. But anyway, moving on before my brain gives up. Luis Pena versus Alex Munoz. This was quite a fun fight. Violent Bob Ross, Luis Pena. Good fight. Luis Pena is an entertaining striker, and such a long guy for the lightweight division as well, that he does make for interesting fights. The only critique I have, and I think they said it on the broadcast too, one thing he doesn't do enough is combinations because he is so long, and his striking, as I said, is fun, and his movement is good. He just doesn't throw enough, in my opinion, because I think sometimes he could cause a lot more damage if he did that. And he's super long. He's such a big guy for that division. But a fun guy to watch, and that was a good win for him via decision against Alex Munoz. But yeah, I'd like to see him just throw a little more, add a little more to his combinations and stuff like that, because his movement and his striking is good. And we had, just in case Trace Cortez. Yeah, I'm going to skip through a few. We had then Arlovsky versus Chase Sherman. This was a fun fight. Over and back, Arlovsky, who I always say has been doing it for a million years now at this stage, looked good in this fight. His cardio looked good against Chase Sherman, who's, in the heavyweight division, they're all heavy hitters. But Chase Sherman is a tough guy, and Arlovsky kind of, I don't want to say, well, he did beat him up. He beat up his legs mostly. Did a lot of damage to his legs, but Arlovsky, who is obviously using his experience in a lot of his fights lately, just continued to move and continuously move away, and then he'd land a shot and move again. But landed some heavy shots on Sherman, just nice jabs as he was coming in, and towards the end of the fight he had really frustrated Sherman, because Sherman was shouting at him like, come on in, tell him to come in and fight, and Arlovsky didn't bite on it, using his experience. Yeah, he did look good in this fight. Arlovsky's just doing it for so long, it's insane. But a good win. He's still, in my opinion, is very, very long in the tooth. His chin is not there anymore, but a bit like Alistair Overeem, he's using his experience and his movement, and he's kind of changed his game. But yeah, listen, great win. I'm not going to shit on him, because I do shit on him a lot for kind of hanging around for too long. But that was a good win, and against a tough guy in Chase Sherman. He really frustrated him with some heavy leg kicks, and just his movement and his cardio looked really good. Even throughout the 3 rounds, he never really slowed down, so it was quite good. And again, look, I'm skipping through this quite quickly, but I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about the main event. And what a fight this was. I mean, I was watching the two events, the UFC Fight Night and the Jake Paul and Ben Askren one, and I mean, what a difference! Like, what a difference in, say, this fight and the entire the whole shit show of a card that was the thriller card. But we'll get on to that next. But on the main event, I mean, I know this sounds silly to say, but it is so true. Like, Robert Whittaker is the best in that division without Israel Adesanya. He's such a good fighter. His move, I think he's so underrated. His movement, his striking, so technical. It's so nice to watch. And then on the other side, you have Kelvin Gastelum, who I would imagine has to be one of the most frustrating guys to fight, because he just doesn't go away. Like, Whittaker had landed some heavy shots that you saw Gastelum's head actually swivel, and he just effed him, and he kept walking, kept cutting off the octagon, walking after him. Now, this isn't completely unanimous. Whittaker won 4 out of the 5, if not all 5 rounds, and the first one possibly was a, as they say in Mortal Kombat, flawless victory. But yeah, it was a great fight, like a tough fight for Whittaker, because, as I said, Gastelum did not go away, kept chasing, kept walking after him, eating shots, just typical tough Mexican dude, and was still swinging for the fences, trying to take Whittaker's head off. But just Whittaker's movement is just so nice to watch. I think I think both guys, in fact, are very underrated fighters. I don't think they get enough praise for how good they are. It's just, unfortunately, you have people with bigger mouths and, I suppose, bigger hype behind them in that division. Your style benders and your big mouth Kevin Holland, guys like that. I'm not saying he's on their level, but I'm just saying he gets bigger hype behind him. But yeah, this is a great fight. Whether it was a statement, put it this way, it was a bigger statement than anyone else made in that division. So I would imagine Whittaker should get another shot at Adesanya. I do think he should, yeah. I know he was pretty well beaten by Adesanya in their first fight, and he lost the belt. But I mean, that doesn't matter. He's the best fight in that division for Adesanya, in my opinion. And I mean, you see how how well Gastelum did against Adesanya in their fight. And he did not do as much damage to Whittaker as what he did to Adesanya. So I know it's MMA math, it doesn't really work, but I mean, it's worth thinking about in a division like this. But yeah, just like Whittaker's his striking, there's absolutely no wind up on it. I love his karate movement. He has that kind of Stephen Wonderboy movement, and the just that karate style. It's so nice to watch. So hard to pick up on because he moves so well, and like I said, he doesn't wind up on anything. And I think he's actually one of the best. The only, you have maybe your Wonder Boys or your Wonder Boy, your Barbosas, those kind of guys. They're probably better, but he disguises his kicks so well. Like, people know that he favours his right high kick, but it's so hard to see coming. He disguises so well. There's no wind up. He sometimes throws it right behind the punch, and it's he can throw 1-2 that high kick mixed in so quick. And he caught Gastelum heavy with it in the first round, and a few times after that, mostly on the block. But yeah, he disguised that kick so well. So nice to see, and brilliant win for Whittaker. Yeah, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. It's kind of it's not the most popular thing to say, but when talking about someone like Kevin Holland, all the hype that's been behind him and how people are saying that his wrestling, needs work on his wrestling and all that, blah, blah. When you look at guys like Whittaker, let's say you got your Whittakers, you got your Adesanya, you got your Darren Till, even Gastelum. Gastelum is not on the level of those guys in terms of striking, but he's still a good boxer. But you look at them guys, and I think you're crazy if you're telling me Kevin Holland can mix it up with them standing. I don't think he. Gastelum and Till, maybe he stands a chance with, but even to be honest, I don't think he does with Till. But it's just at the point I'm making, because it's not the most popular opinion. I don't think Kevin Holland belongs with those guys in terms of striking either. And I know he's not a part of this fight week or anything like that. I'm just saying it's backing up my own statement. Like, Whittaker is such a patient striker. If you watch the Darren Till and Whittaker fight, we were so patient. We're both guys. It was like a game of chess, violent chess, as I always say. Yeah, it's like, the point I'm making is just, again, to back up my own statement. I think Kevin Holland can work on all the wrestling he wants. I think he's got to work on his striking too when it comes to the upper tier of that division, because you see the difference. And like, for as good as Robert Whittaker is, he's still not the top of that division. It's just insane. It really shows how good Adesanya is. But I think Whittaker has earned a shot back at that title. You just never know. I don't know what's going to happen. I would imagine that Adesanya now wants to, defend that belt rather than move up again. I don't know, but nevertheless, Whittaker looked brilliant. One of his best performances, in my opinion, because, as I said, Gastelum's a tough dude. So hopefully he gets the title shot next. And there's some fun fights for Gastelum in that division too still. I'm sure he would rather be getting his second shot at the title, his a shot at the title. I can't remember whether he's ever challenged it before. But yeah, listen, great fight. Such a good fight. Brilliant performance by Robert Whittaker. Another thing I wanted to say was he timed, I think he'd only 2 takedowns in the fight, maybe 3, but he timed one of them so well towards the end. As you see, kind of midway through the last round, I don't want to say they're necessarily getting tired, but you can see both guys are just slowing down a little bit, and Whittaker times perfectly a takedown. And just, kind of controlled it and solved the fight. It's just such a smart game plan. Yeah, somewhat of a I don't want to say flawless victory, but somewhat really good performance, really well done. Still some interesting fights for Gastelum, as I said, and still a tough character for anyone in that division. But it's somewhat of a statement by Whittaker. That's all I say. But yeah, great performance, great fight, so enjoyable. Yeah, that's all on the UFC. We'll have a quick look ahead. I hope I haven't missed anything there. We'll have a quick look ahead to next week. Not going to break it down or anything, but just a quick look before I move on to fucking boxing. Next week is the small matter of UFC 261, which is, I mean, what a fucking card. So going from the early prelims down, we have Johnny Munoz versus Jamie Simons, Liang Na versus Ariana Camalosi, Jeff Molina versus Quilling Aori, Rodrigo Vargas versus Zhu Rong, Kevin Natvidad versus Dane Batgarov. I have no idea who any of these guys are, I'm sorry. But that's only the early prelims. And then we have Pat Sabatini versus Tristan Connolly. I believe Tristan Connolly is the guy who beat that big welterweight guy. Never mind, I'm not going to think of his name. Carl Robertson versus Brendan Allen. Then we have Dwight Grant versus Stefan Kulik. Then we have Alex Oliveira versus Randy Brown. That would be a good fight. And then this is heading into the main card, which is kicking off the main card. Could be a main event in itself. Is Anthony Smith versus Jimmy Crute. The light heavyweight division. That's a great fight. Then we got Uriah Hall versus Chris Weidman. Another great fight. We got Valentina Shevchenko, first of 3 title fights versus Jessica Andrade. Got Weili Zhang versus Rose Namajunas, and of course Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal. I mean, what a fight card. Please nobody gets sick or COVID or anything like that. Cracking card. It'll be so interesting to see. Dare I make predictions? I will very quickly make predictions, just for the fun of it. So I see, I don't know, the Jimmy Crute and Anthony Smith one, I don't even want to make a call on because I actually really like both guys. I think possibly Jimmy Crute might take that one. Anthony Smith, I think Jimmy Crute will take that one. Then you got Uriah Hall, Chris Weidman. I think Weidman will take that. Shevchenko will beat Andrade, I believe. It's a tough one in the co-main event. Weili Zhang versus Namajunas. It's power versus technique, really, isn't it? I don't know. Let's go with Namajunas. And I'm not even sure. In the main event, I do believe Kamaru Usman is going to win that. I don't think it's going to be as clear and as easy as people are kind of saying. Because I think he's going to get in trouble. I think it's going to be a good fight over and back. But I think Usman's wrestling might see out the win for him. But I think it's going to be a pretty even fight, in my honest opinion. I think you're going to see Usman get tested a bit. But a great fight. Looking forward to breaking that one down. Anyway, with that being said, that's all the UFC stuff for now. Yeah, so then we had the simple little breakdown or rant. It's going to be such a rant, I'm trying not to, of the Thriller boxing event. You see, the majority of my notes are on this rather than MMA, which I swore I wouldn't do, but it was hard not to. So yes, there's a lot of things I wanted to talk about on this, and I'm going to, watching the whole event, and I had it on the laptop and then I had the UFC on the TV, and switching between the two, if there's a break in the MMA I would try and go to the boxing and vice versa. Mostly with the MMA, obviously, as people know I'm more of an MMA fan, but so many things I gotta just jump on. Yeah, okay. As I said, I'm trying not to completely shit on boxing, and to be fair, one thing I will say before I talk about any of this is not boxing. Any real boxing fans know that I am not a legitimate big time boxing fan. I say that almost every week, but just so people know, because plenty of my friends that watch and stuff like that are boxing fans. I realise now after watching this event, this is not boxing. It's not fair to call it boxing, but the whole selling point of this was supposedly, to try and get different people into boxing. That's what they were saying in a lot of the, supposedly this whole YouTube boxing thing was to get new fans to the sport. I mean, this is not anywhere near what boxing is. Some things are a bit like boxing, which I'll get to. But yeah, a lot of the stuff I wanted to talk about. One is you know, Jake Paul's comments during the week about showing early signs of CTE, which, again, the videos are everywhere, so I'm sure a lot of people have seen them. Like, you cannot diagnose CTE until someone has died. But yet his doctor told him, supposedly, he was showing early signs of it. I understand he's one of these guys who likes to say things, you know, him and his brother, they say weird things sometimes anyway, but I just don't understand why he said that. It made no sense as to why he bothered to say that. He came out afterwards saying, shouldn't have said it, that he was, I don't know, he played it off as a joke or something. It's just a weird statement to make, that's all. I'm not going to play too much on that, but like I said, weird statement to make. Yeah, and getting into the whole event itself, like, as I said, when there was a break in the UFC, the UFC event, I would flick over to the boxing. Every time I flicked over, there was I put out a post on the Go Grab That Day Facebook and Instagram. I flicked over the first time, there was a live performance on. I think it was Black Keys, pretty sure. Some of these groups, these artists that were playing, to be honest, I don't know who they are. I just don't. I've heard of the Black Keys, but I couldn't name a song or anything like that. But they were playing. Went on for like, you know, then there was a fight in the MMA and I went back to it. They were still playing. So it went on for like 20 minutes, half an hour. That was fine. Then you had I tuned out. To be honest, I didn't see any of the fights, bar the Frank Mir fight, and I got a little glimpse of the co-main, which I know ended quite bad, and then I got the main event, obviously, which I'll get to. But anyway, just to say, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to the boxing because I was watching the MMA before that. But the reason I was watching this event anyway was for the main event. But every time I tried to watch a fight, there was fucking a concert on. So like that happened like 3 or 4 times. Then there was Saweetie, I think was her name, which I don't know either. She had a live performance. Then of course Justin Bieber, and they done that like 3 or 4 times, each of them on for like 30 minutes, 20 minutes. So in other words, it was like a concert with a little bit of boxing thrown in on the side. And it was irritating the fuck out of me. That's just being honest. One of the funniest things actually I was following, people have already tweeted about this and stuff, I was following all day was Luke Thomas from Morning Combat, and he's a guy who I always quote on this podcast and stuff like that. His Twitter feed was excellent. Like, his Twitter feed was as much fun as watching the event itself, because he was worse than me for complaining about it. But I will say this, I'm super pissed off at the amount of music numbers. There was no need for it. But there was points where I was watching it and then I kind of got into the groove and I was kind of enjoying it and it became almost fun. But then something would happen to where I was like, oh, fuck this, you know, and I'd tune out of it again, and it kept doing that all night. Now, by the end of it, I was so sick of it, and I'll tell you the reasons why, the main reasons. The music is not so bad. I think there's way too much of it, but it's not so bad. It reminded me of, like, at one point it looked like that show, you know, on MTV, my Super Sweet 16. That's what it was like. It was like some spoiled kid had splashed out a big party. I think Luke Thomas as well had said something like this, and it made total sense. But yeah, that's what it was like. It was just like someone spent a shit ton of money on a party, which is fine. And there was a point where, I won't lie, I enjoyed this part where they had like a slap fight. I can't remember who was the guy that was presenting it, the comedian dude. Yeah, whatever his name was anyway. Introduced Ric Flair and come in, and then they had this slap fight like you see on TV, 2 guys, open hands, slapping. It was that part was kind of fun. I was sitting there kind of thinking, you know, if I wasn't sober watching this, had a few of my friends around, we just had this on the TV, having a few beers, it would be a lot of fun. But where it really pissed me off was the commentary. You know, sorry, before I get to that, you know, you had like Ice Cube come on and stuff like that, which was, you know, that was fun. Obviously, I am an Ice Cube fan, his music is brilliant. Yeah. But again, too much music numbers, no need for that much. You know, either it's a boxing event or it's a concert, and they kept trying to sell it like, this is what you get here, Thriller, and, you know, so are you selling a boxing event or what? And not only that, the amount of money they must have spent. And I know that Ben Askren had said that this is one of his biggest paydays ever. So they must have spent a lot of money on him too. And I'm sure the other guys, like your Frank Mears, Jake Paul, I'm sure they're all getting well paid. Yeah, which, fair enough, but it just looks like they're, as I said in my post on the social media pages, they're heading for bankruptcy quick, I would imagine. Because I don't think there's that many people really watching it. And again, the weird thing about the music number was there's no crowd there really. Very little of, I think you have a few celebrity guests there, that's about it. So there's no hype to it, it's just performing on an empty stage, and it was, again, music not so bad, just too much of it. But the main thing was the commentary. Like, you had Oscar De La Hoya coming on, and he was fucking without a doubt either flooded with alcohol or high as a fucking kite, or both. And the commentary team, I don't even know how many there was because it got so annoying to listen to them, but they were just all talking over each other. Oscar De La Hoya was screaming, most of the time just shouting nonsense, making no sense, constantly contradicting each other, constantly contradicting himself. At one point he was talking about the guy that fought Frank Mir. Fuck, my names are bad. But anyway, De La Hoya came in mostly for that. That's when he did a lot of his talking, during that fight. But he was talking about how this guy has no chin, he has no chin. And then in the next breath he was saying, these guys are warriors, they're both great fighters, and Frank Mir this and that. And then he was shitting on Frank Mir. Excuse me. He was over and back. And yeah, it was a shit show, in my honest opinion, all around the whole. They won me over at one point, because I was starting to enjoy the entertainment side of it, when they had Ric Flair out, and I was like, look, this is a circus, it's fun. If I was sitting having a few beers, not taking notes for the podcast, probably would have been fun, but then listening to the commentary team would have drove me crazy. The like I said, the talking over each other, some of the camera angles as well, I found, it was your normal camera angle just above the ropes, and it was fine picking them up. But then every so often they would flick to a camera that was looking through the ropes, and you would miss a lot of the action, or it was hard to see it, which was another weird thing they did. Again, I'm not looking to shit on the entire. Well, I'm giving my honest account of the event. Like I said, if they had an event again and there isn't a UFC on, and maybe there's a couple of interesting characters fighting, no problem. I would sit there with a few mates of mine watching it, having fun. Not really paying a whole lot of attention, not necessarily dissecting any of the fights or anything like that. But the main thing for me, De La Hoya, it was like filming a couple of guys that were at a party talking about fights. That's the only way I can put it. With plenty of how do I put this polite? Plenty of supplements going around is the way I would put it. There was a lot of supplements going around this event. Snoop Dogg, who I am a fan of, I think he's a fucking disgrace as a commentator. I'm not being mean there. I think the way he commentates on a lot of these fights, he did it a little while, or for a little bit in the UFC. And I said this on the post. He is fun, but nothing more than that. He has no brain for the game. He has no respect for the fighters. Same with Oscar De La Hoya and commentating on this. And in fact, a lot of the guys, I don't know some of the other commentators, but they didn't have much respect for the guys who were in the ring. Again, I'm not a boxing fan, but in particular with this guy they were talking about, he said he had no chin. The guy that was fighting Frank Mir, apologies, I can't remember his name, we'll put it here. But yeah, I just didn't like it's just no respect, and it's so hard to listen to when you're trying to watch and have respect and dissect a fight. And like, if they're shitting on the event, how can you have respect for the event if they're shitting on it? You know what I'm saying? If they're shitting on the guys that are in the ring fighting in your co-main event, how can you respect it? And then of course you had, the main event, obviously, where Jake Paul won. Before I go shitting on the main event, people are saying it was a fix and all this. Listen, it wasn't a fix. Jake Paul won fair and square. It was a good right hand. Ben Askren didn't take a dive. The reason you see Ben Askren walking away smiling and stuff like that is because that's Ben Askren. And in fairness, he has said all along that it's very possible he loses this fight. That's the kind of attitude Ben Askren has. You have to remember, he's been knocked out in the quickest ever, if not the quickest, one of the quickest knockouts ever in the UFC, by Masvidal. That's the way he is. He's a, how do I say, that's just the way he takes the loss well, He does take a loss very well, and credit to Jake Paul. Listen, great right hand, and he knocked him out fair and square, no dive, give Jake Paul his respect there. I'm not going to shit on Jake Paul too much. He did what he should have done. Maybe I shit on him just a little bit. But what I will shit on big time is, again, Snoop Dogg, when Askren got knocked out, he's jumping up, he's like, yeah, motherfucker, give me my money, and he's screaming over the other commentators. Complete lack of respect for everybody, for Ben Askren in particular, and I'm not just taking this from an MMA standpoint. For the event itself, if you want something like this to kick off, in particular, that what ruined this event for me was the commentators. Ruined it. You get some better commentators into these events, guys who are not going to be fucking off their heads, whatever about the smoking and shit like that. I think there was a little more supplements going around in this event. And I understand that, like, I quoted one of the commentators saying, this is what you get on Thriller. And it's like, okay, so you get a shit show. And it's, just commentators screaming over each other. Oscar De La Hoya, protein powder all over his face. It's just, the commentary was what really pissed me off. And like, I know I'll keep going over and back, but I was at some points enjoying the event, thinking of, this is fun, it's quite cool, it's there's not many other places doing it, let's be honest. But that commentary, I could not, for an hour, let alone a full event, I could not listen to the way they disrespect, the way they're all over the place. You gotta have a little respect. You gotta have a little control. You gotta have a little, it's like chaos. The commentary team, and I cannot stand that with Snoop, where he's up, and I've seen him do that in other videos, and I am a Snoop Dogg fan. Stuff he's done, he's a funny guy, don't get me wrong, but have a little respect for people that are getting in the cage and the ring, doing something you never in a million years would have the bottle to do. And the same for, Oscar De La Hoya, can't get out, like, he's a fucking, retired world-class boxer, like, and he's in talking absolute shit, completely talking out of his ass. Out of all of them, you'd imagine he should have had a little more control over himself. But look, I can understand why I imagine Dana White's going to have quite a big rant about Oscar De La Hoya coming up soon. But yeah, just that completely ruined the event for me, was the commentating, and the lack of respect and just a lack of control, all of that. It was just all over the place. Pete Davis, that's the guy that I was thinking of. He's the guy that was presenting a lot of the show. Comedian, funny guy, don't get me wrong. I think he's a comedian anyway. Comedian, actor, or something like that. But funny guy, but again, not a whole lot of control. I'm kind of all over the place, swearing throughout the entire event. Which, listen, I'm not trying to be, Captain fucking PC here, but I'm just saying it almost, if it looks like they don't give a shit about the event, how can anyone watching really give a shit about the event or respect the event? It is, the swearing is okay, and I don't mind like that they're getting high and stuff like that, but you still need to have an element of control, an element of respect for the guys that are getting in there and fighting, and an element of fucking just control. There's no control, shouting over each other, and as I said, completely contradicting themselves. There was like so much talking that it took away from the actual fights. Completely took away from the fights. Didn't enjoy it. Found it so hard to get into it, and again, I'll repeat this for the 50th time. I was at some points enjoying it, getting into it, and just the commentary ruined it for me. Like, at one point earlier in the night, they went to a clip of Snoop Dogg asking Ben Askren, what's the toughest boxing match you've had so far? The whole selling point of this event is that Ben Askren is not a fucking boxer, he's an MMA fighter. Wrestling is his forte, like, it's just a shit show. I don't know, I would absolutely sit down with a bottle of whiskey or, a few beers with a few mates, and I would watch another one of their events, probably on mute. That's the only way I would enjoy it, or maybe, put on the sound when the music is playing. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things to be said about it, and most of them are not good. Surprisingly, even for myself, the only good thing I have to say is that Jake Paul put on a good performance. He won fair and square, good knockout, credit to him. Not a fix, Ben Askren lost fair and square, Jake Paul won fair and square. I have said previously, and I know, listen, I'm not going to lie and say, didn't think Askren was going to win. I was hoping Askren would win. I thought he would do better. I didn't think he would be knocked out. But if he was going to be knocked out, it was going to be early. The only thing that this is going to do now is Jake Paul has to up at another level. And this is what I said before with the danger. You know, he beats Askren. Now he's got to up. He can't go back to fighting a ex-football or ex-basketball or another YouTube star. He has to fight fighters. And Ben Askren is a rare breed in terms of guys who manage to stay in the sport so long with just such a high level of one element of the sport. Not a lot of these guys now, you know, even your Dylan Dennis, who seems to be a name that's floating around. Dylan Dennis is a better striker than Askren, in my opinion. That is the name that seems to be floating around. I don't know. People need to get off this thing to where thinking Jake Paul is going to beat Conor McGregor. He is not going to beat Conor McGregor. I don't even think he's going to get that fight, to be honest. Now, I don't know, depending on the money, but I'm not sure if they can afford Conor McGregor. Maybe they can, the way they're splashing out money. But he's going to be stopped bad soon because he is pretty good for an amateur, and he is going to keep getting better, and he looks like he's gotten better. But he's, I think, bitten off more than he can chew. Let's say even the next guy, whoever it may be, let's say he beats a Dylan Dennis, which I don't think he will. But I didn't think he beat Ben Askren either, so maybe he proved me wrong there. But he has to keep up, and he's going to meet somebody who has done it for a lot longer than him, he would need a lifetime to catch up on. So, but listen, credit to him. And just so I'm not completely shitting on the entire event, there is something there. I've said this before. There is something there that can be, that can sell, and they are a lot of fun. The only thing I would say is they need to do it at a different time, because I will never watch one of those events over an MMA event. And they need to get a different commentary team. Even if they had it on during the MMA, because I know it's the best time. But they need a different commentary team. Or at least if you're going to have it like a party, social thing where everyone's having fun, keep Snoop Dogg off the fucking commentary. Keep Oscar De La Hoya out of the toilets. You know, seriously, keep a professional team commentating on the event. And then have your fun characters, have your Pete Davis, have your Ric Flair, have your slap matches in the back. You know, to be honest, it was fun. Those parts were quite funny to watch. I did, because it was different. And I suppose if you have the music, again, a little less of them, there is something there. But even being polite, I think De La Hoya and Snoop Dogg were a disgrace. Truly think they were a disgrace, and I just don't know the names of some of the other commentators, but they were the same. Disgrace for the way they disrespected fighters, the way they, like one of them, I'm not sure it was a Snoop or another guy, because they weren't showing them while they were speaking, but they were saying something, oh, he's gone into Night Night Land singing a lullaby, you know, all this completely disrespectful to Ben Askren. And they were disrespectful to Jake Paul as well, because they should have, like I said, had more respect for the event, and people would respect the event that are watching it then. I don't think Triller has gone off too well tonight with any fight fans. You know, like if you watch in comparison to the MMA main event, I know different sports and all that, I'm not trying to bounce one off the other, but I'm just saying they're on at the same time. This is who they're competing with. I mean, it's at best amateur and pro. I mean, it's completely different. Just, like I said, be professional with your commentary team, and the rest of it can be kind of crazy. Like that is not so bad, you know. It's just a total disrespect to the sport of boxing, total disrespect to every person that fought on the cards. Yeah, just super disrespectful. The whole event was ruined by the dickheads that were commentating. That's, again, my opinion, and I'm being as nice as I can because I was furious watching it. I know there's a lot of jokes going around about De La Hoya and all that, and it is. Listen, if it was MMA, for me, I'd be a lot worse. But obviously, because I'm not as much of a boxing fan, but I mean, the best thing I can say is if they don't show any respect for it, how can anyone watching it show it? Just ridiculous. Ridiculous that De La Hoya was that disrespectful on the mic. And I'm not saying that he completely shit on fighters. He was just disrespectful in the way he acted, the way he conducted himself. Same with Snoop, but then again, you know, he has done that in the past, Snoop, where he's got why people are paying him to be a part of these events. Be like a background guy, be like what Pete Davis was doing, which they had Snoop doing, I know that. And that is fun, and, you know, it is fun. You know, the slap matches and all this, if they want to sell thrillers like this crazy circus, by all means, all that is quite fun. And I would pay attention a little bit, having a few beers. That's where it becomes a fun thing. But by no means is it's not going to get people to boxing. It's boxing. That is not boxing. That's not what real boxing is. It's not what the real combat sports are. Yeah, just insane, and the people are pumping that kind of money into an event like this, and they're allowing commentators to be that disrespectful. I can't say that enough, and I'm hoping. I haven't seen any of the other podcasters or any of the other guys like and the other guy fight breakdowns, and I'm sure they're going to touch on this a little bit. But I hope I'm not the only one that thinks it was like this. I cannot be the only one. It was, yeah, a shit show. Commentating team are a joke. There's so many. Like, you think of the amount of ex-fighters out there that you could get on those desks and have them be professional. Get in some it would have been fun to have a couple of MMA guys, a couple of boxing guys sit there sober, and then have your circus in the background. It would have been so much more fun. But again, I don't know who the entire commentating team are. I don't know them. I know some of them were just celebs. I think the two main guys were actual commentators, but they were pretty shit as well. Just all round shit show. So yeah, that rant was even a lot less than what I had originally planned, but I think I've got through pretty much everything. But just, yeah, like I said, again, finish on it. Jake Paul did well, looked good, took it serious, clearly, got a good win, no fix, all that. Credit to Ben Askren, he went out, did his thing, took the loss well, like he always does. Again, quite a fun event, the Ric Flair, the slaps backstage, fun to watch. Commentary team, absolute disgrace, makes me never want to buy it again. If it was free, I'd want my money back. Just mostly based on that commentary alone, and yeah, mostly that, and just too much music numbers. I'm not going to keep going round in circles because I keep repeating myself. But yeah, credit to Jake Paul. It will be interesting to see who he gets next. I'm trying to think if there's someone I could pick for him. I don't think Dylan Dennis is a smart fight for him. But maybe, maybe it is maybe it's the safest fight for him, actually. Because off the top of my head, I can't really think of anyone else right now. But I think Dylan Dennis' striking is not so bad compared to Ben Askren, and that's the problem. A lot of these guys going up there, you're going to have your wrestlers and your jiu-jitsu players, but they will work a lot more on the striking than what Ben Askren did. But yeah, an interesting evening of fights. Flicking between the two. I rarely do the boxing thing, and I take back what I said. I put up on the social media that I was pumped for this fight yesterday. I take it back. My apologies to all my boxing friends and stuff like that. That was not a boxing event. That was a circus with a little bit of boxing thrown in between. Yeah, I can say no more. Supplements for everyone. Anyway, that's it for this week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the little bit of a breakdown. A huge card to break down next week. But as I always say, and as I'm always going to say until the end of time, I appreciate what everyone's doing with the support and stuff like that. I really do have some interesting little projects coming up. Just working on them all the time. And this podcast, I'm going to try and grow it to as big as it's willing to allow me. I just really hope people keep supporting it, keep, like I always say, sharing, liking, but most importantly, subscribing to the YouTube channel. That's where we get our support. That's where we get our, other people in to come on the podcast with us. It's all about those numbers. That's what's important. And it's where we get to grow the podcast, as I said. But there is, I swear, some more fun things coming in terms of everything. Secret, I can't tell you. But please, yeah, keep supporting us. I think that's all I have to say. Yeah, we have a big card to break down next week, so I'm looking forward to that. And that's it. Have a good day. Subscribe to the channel. Watch me next week. Take care. Go grab that day. Ta-da!